Hello there, it's Sandeep, and in this short video I'm going to show you a common mistake people make when playing the Rue Lopez with the white pieces. And what's interesting about this mistake is that it is born out of confusion. Players are confusing martial and anti-martial lines, and I'm going to show you how. So on the screen right now we have the Morphy defense in the Rue Lopez. So how do we get here? e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rue Lopez, one of the most common openings in chess, a6, the Morphy, bishop a4, knight f6, and we should all know by now that bishop takes c6, knight takes e5 is a tactic that doesn't work, because after bishop takes c6, d takes c6, knight takes e5, black can meet this with queen d4, and now the knight is hanging. Let's say knight f3, queen takes d4, queen e2, queen takes e2, king takes e2, and in this position black got his pawn back, but even worse, black has a slightly winning position according to Stockfish. So not a good idea to play bishop takes c6. So instead we have bishop e7, castles first, bishop e7, rook e1. And now this pawn is being defended, and so there is a potential remove the defender tactic, and so we have to play the move b5, bishop b3, castles. And in this position, top players will take the game in several directions. So they'll play the move c3, which will often lead to the martial attack, or they'll play some anti-martial line like a4 or h3. And so what happens when players play the move c3? So after c3, we can have the martial attack d5. And so we have e takes d5, knight takes d5, and now knight takes e5. And just remember this move, knight takes e5. It's a move here in the martial attack. It is not a move in some lines, in some anti-martial lines. In fact, it's a total blunder, and I'll show you how. So after knight takes e5, everything is fine. Knight takes e5 again, rook takes e5. This knight is hanging, c6, let's say d4, bishop d6, the rook has to retreat, rook e1, queen h4, the game goes on. This is a main line, and there's fighting chances for both sides. That's the martial attack. But if we go back, after castles and instead of c3, some players will play this move h3, which is fine. So this is played at the top level, grandmasters will play h3. But what h3 does, it neglects the center, it gives black some time to play this move bishop b7. And that puts some pressure here on the e4 pawn via this f6 knight and via an x-rail from this bishop. So what top players do is they play this move d3 to shore up the center, to give this e4 pawn some support. But if you go into the Lichess database, the most common move in this position, some 1 in 2 players do this, they'll play this move c3, and c3 is not losing. But c3 is a little dubious, and you can see that when c3 is played, white's win rate is terrible. White's win rate declines to about 39%, black's win rate is about 56%. And I'm going to show you why this leads to trouble. Technically, it has a 0 evaluation, so Stockfish could hold the position together, but it can get tricky for players with the white pieces. So after c3, we have an immediate d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and now you can see in the Lichess database, 2,779 people, the most common move in this position. So almost 2 out of 3 players in this position on Lichess, this is everyone not master level players, will play the move knight takes e5, and this is a complete mistake. The evaluation close to a blunder, the evaluation goes close to -3, and you'll say why? Because after knight takes e5, rook takes e5, black has the follow-up knight f4, and this pawn on g2 is hanging because of this bishop here on b7. In the martial attack, this bishop was not on b7, it was on c8. So this knight f4 idea doesn't work. But now this pawn is hanging, and white is in a lot of trouble. So instinctively players play this move f3, and you can see this creates all these dark square weaknesses around the white king. And so now you have bishop d6, the rook retreats, rook e1, but now you have queen g5. And I can tell you in this position there is a forced mate in 9. And you can go and study this on your own, but as a few illustrations, if you try g4, then we have queen h4, and obviously you cannot ignore the threat. So if you just waste a move, you're going to have queen g3, queen g2 checkmate. So let's say you play this move rook e2, but now you have queen g3 check anyway, and if you play king h1, then you have bishop takes f3 check, rook g2, I think that's the only move, queen takes g2 checkmate. If you go to f1, then you have queen f3 check, and let's say king e1, knight d3 checkmate. So not a good idea to play g4. If you try to play this move rook e2, then There are many winning moves for black, but a clean way is just to play this move rook e8. And obviously here white cannot take because we have checkmate here on g2. Let's say you play this move rook f1, trying to retain some control over the second rank. You have queen g3. And now it doesn't really matter what white does, white's going to get checkmated. So after knight takes h3 check, if you have king h1, you have queen h2 checkmate. Or if you have king f1, then you have queen f2 checkmate. And all this happens because players play this move knight takes e5, which they can do in the martial attack, but they couldn't do here in an anti-martial line where h3 has been played, where c3 has been played, and where bishop is on b7. How does this line supposed to go? Well, instead of c3, you're supposed to have d3, and now after d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5. You can play knight takes e5, I think. The key thing here is that after all is said and done, this bishop is controlling the f4 square, so you don't have that knight f4 jump as shown previously. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video, and it's quite interesting how this stuff arises through confusion. If you have any comments on it, do leave them below. Thank you very much for your time.